Today we'll look at the slidesmerge sheets add-on. So this is kind of like a mail merge except for slides. So it will take a sheet with some data, a template slide, and create a whole bunch of decks or a whole bunch of slides in one deck based on each row in that sheet. We'll talk about how to get the add-on later on. For now we're going to do a quick demo of how it works. As usual, we start the add-on from the add-on menu. Unlike my usual add-ons, which are based on the sidebar, this one takes the form of a dialog box. It's actually modeless, so it allows you to go back and forth to the spreadsheet at the same time that this is open. So let's move this out of the way for a minute. So what we have here is the spreadsheet from which I'm going to create some slides, just a bunch of people and some data about them. And I've also created a template. So let's pick that. I'll find it here. I think I'm going to take that one. So let's go and have a look inside the template first before we run it. So this is a deck that's got little tags placed in it, and each time that you see something inside a double curly bracket like that, it's going to find the data in the spreadsheet that's driving it and substitute in whatever's in there for that. But not only that, it will create either an entire new slide deck for each row in the data, or alternatively it will create a new set of slides in a single deck for each row in the data. So the double curly bracket means substitute in the value from the spreadsheet. You can see the type of thing. The triple curly bracket means that you're going to find the URL of an image in the spreadsheet that needs to be substituted in. So that's my deck. I've got a title deck, and then I've got a set of 3 slides I want to be repeated for every single row in the data. So I also need to tell it where to put the result. So we'll put the result there. What I'd expect to see now, if I were to run this, would be 5 sets of slides, one for each row in the spreadsheet. Now I haven't chosen any options, so it's not going to actually give me what I want, but let's just run it to see what it does give us, and then we'll go back and set the proper settings for this particular configuration. So when it's done, you get a message, and you also get a link to the result. So let's just go there and take a look at it. So we've got a single deck with quite a lot of slides in it, one set for each row in the spreadsheet, but it isn't really what we want, because in this deck I've got a slide header that I only want to appear one time, not to be repeated multiple times, as you can see it is. And I've also got some things that haven't been substituted, and that's because I'm allowed to have global variables as well. In other words, variables that apply to every slide as opposed to being taken from the spreadsheet data. And I didn't tell it where to find that either. So we need to go back and fix that. So we do that in the settings. The first thing I want to do is to tell it where to find the global variables. So that's here. Now, global variables is just a list of names and values. So that's the name of the variable, and that's the value. Whereas data that comes from the spreadsheet, the name of the variable to substitute in comes from the column heading, as you can see there. Because I wanted to treat slide 1 in the template as a master slide, in other words, one that isn't duplicated for every row in the data. Now I can add a comma separated list here to, for example, to make others treat the same way, but we just want slide 1 to be treated like that. So now when I go back and run it, I should get a different result. So let's go and see what it made. So this time it's exactly what I want. I have the global variables have been substituted in. This master slide has not been repeated for every row in the data. And I have a set of 3 slides for every row in the sheet. Do a quick present to see what that looks like. Okay, so there's our master slide. This is the first set coming up, all nicely formatted, and with the images substituted in. Okay, that's enough about that now. Let's go back to the data and remind ourselves how that was picked up. Move this out of the way. So each one of these columns was available for substitution and repetition throughout the deck, and the values that were put in were the values for each row. And any images that I wanted to be included was just a URL to that image. Take another look at the template again. Double curly bracket, name a variable for data to be picked up and inserted, and triple curly bracket, name of column for images that want to be inserted. There's no difference between inserting global data and data that comes from the row. They both use double curly brackets. So let's look at a couple of other options. Now, output deck single means that you want the slides or the set of slides to be repeated for the number of times that there are rows in the data, but you want the final result to be held in one single deck. Now, it may be that you want a separate deck for every row in the data, so we just choose multiple. If you just run it like that, then every slide deck that gets created will be called slidesmerge result dash some index number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It may well be that you want to name it after some data that's in the spreadsheet, so we can pick some column from here. So now we're going to get decks that are named after the contents of this column. And we can set a few other things as well, like only do a certain number of rows and so on. But let's leave it like that for now and go back and run it. So this time, instead of having a link to the deck that was created, it's given us a link to the folder in which the deck was created, because of course there are multiple decks this time. So let's go there. And here's the 5 decks that we've created, one for each person. And because we chose to take the name from inside the spreadsheet, it's named them accordingly, so easy to find. So let's pick this one. So there's the single deck repeated from the template with all the stuff filled in, both from the global variables and also from this guy's row in the data. And there we have it. You'll be able to get this add-on shortly from the add-on store. So keep an eye out for slidesmerge on the Google Chrome store. As usual, the code is open source, so you'll be able to get hold of it on GitHub. If you visit my site, you'll get the details there.